We've decided to adopt, just as a loose theme for the course, a biological theme so that you can see the connections between chemistry and biology and the things that you might consider doing in the future. We want you to think about the molecules that are relevant to your body, the processes that occur in your body, the chemistry that's going on and how energy plays a role. And we divided the course into 4 sections, and after each section there will be a midterm. The first one, or an exam. The first one is about matter.
In February 2016, as infection moved rapidly through the range occupied by Aedes mosquitoes in the Americas, WHO declared that Zika infection associated with microcephaly and other neurological disorders constituted a public health emergency of international concern. By the start of February 2016, local transmission of Zika infection had been reported from more than 20 countries and territories in the Americas, and an outbreak numbering thousands of cases was underway in Cabo Verde in Western Africa. Health education intervention programs are currently available to improve cognitive understanding of the importance of adopting certain dietary and physical activity behaviors and lifestyle choices. The aims of such programs are to improve health. The Coronary Health Improvement Project is a health education intervention that teaches people the importance of making better choices in nutrition, physical activity, and tobacco in order to prevent, arrest, and even reverse coronary heart disease. The principles of integrative nursing advocate that food be considered as a primary intervention for health promotion, risk reduction, and generally improved well-being. Food provides information to the body, signaling basic biological functions and normalizing physiological processes. Health care professionals should query patients about their nutritional intake, recognizing that adjustments in the types of foods consumed can often address long-standing symptoms that create distress, including pain, fatigue, anxiety, and gastrointestinal dysfunction. It's relatively easy to envisage what you'll be doing next week, but imagining a more distant future can be challenging because it feels so abstract. We tend to fall back on memories of the past to construct our visions of the future, but it's harder to guess which past memories will prove pertinent in making sense of things that are more distant. Research suggests that people who plan for failure are best equipped when problems arise. To do that, though, we need to picture ourselves in the distant future and predict what specific obstacle we may confront. One seminal difference in policy remains: the coalition has not matched what is Labour's most important innovation promise. That is to bring together responsibilities for innovation, industry, science and research under one single federal minister. Innovation responsibilities currently lie within the powerful Department of Education and Science, and while there is a separate industry department, it has little influence within cabinet. This has hampered policy development and given Australia's innovation policies a distinctly science and research bias. It is the scientists rather than the engineers who call the tune in innovation policy in Canberra, so it's no surprise our policies are all about boosting government-funded research and later commercializing their results. Milk production, i.e., lactation, is a major component of reproduction in mammals. In contrast to all other animals, mammals including primitive mammals, such as the duck-billed platypus and the spiny anteater nourish their offspring with a liquid that is secreted by specialized glands. Milk production and secretion are complex, multi-stage processes that are controlled by several hormones, the most important of which are prolactin and oxytocin. There are few studies on research training programs within the realm of Asian American health disparities. The existing literature on training programs tends to emphasize broad components such as mentorship and an examination of the community and academic partnership. Moreover, the current available literature pertains mostly to clinical practitioners such as nurses and doctors in residency rather than researchers. Few articles employed quantitative evaluation methods, because most of these evaluations were limited to a low number of participants. Group-based microfinance schemes attempt to harness the collective power of mutual support with members pooling their savings and making small loans to each other so that they can set up small businesses. Most aim to improve the economic power of and employment opportunities for women in their immediate community, and many aim to confront ingrained discriminatory attitudes to women. Some aim to facilitate the attendance of girls at school and change attitudes to the paid employment of women outside their homes. Menopause is characterized by greatly diminished levels of a group of steroid reproductive hormones called estrogens. Estrogens travel through the bloodstream and exert widespread physiological effects on organ growth and development. Approximately 25% of postmenopausal women take supplemental estrogens to alleviate unpleasant symptoms of menopause, a practice called hormone replacement therapy. For example, HRT decreases the risk of cardiovascular disease and osteoporosis but may increase the risk of cancer. The World Health Organization has been working with ministries of health and other stakeholders of Pacific Island countries to build climate-resilient health systems. Although a disease-specific approach is useful initially, in the long run a comprehensive intersectoral program is required. As recommended by WHO, this program should address I. Health governance and policies tackling climate risks, E. Health information, integrated surveillance and climate early warning systems, and E. Preventive and curative services.
Radon is a naturally occurring, colorless, odorless, and tasteless radioactive gas derived from the decay of thorium and uranium, which are common elements found in rock and soil. Radon gas becomes entrapped in houses and other buildings by seeping into cracks in foundations or basements or by entering through sump pumps or other drainage systems. Though most people have heard of radon, very few test their homes for the radioactive gas. One study reported that 82% of respondents had heard of radon but only 15% had tested for radon.
The Czech Republic currently is undergoing transformation from the centralized regime of a communist dictatorship towards a modern democratic state. Fanta et al. Recognizes three main events in the last half-century that had profound consequences for the country and its land use. First, the communist coup d'état and the following collectivization of land in the 1950s that introduced large-scale collective farming. Second, the abolition of the totalitarian political system in 1989, which was followed by the restitution of private land ownership in the 1990s. Although Oikawa is much too young to have been directly affected by the expulsion of the Japanese Canadians from the Pacific coast, her anger at the treatment they endured during and immediately after the Second World War is apparent in the very use of the word violence in the title. Calling them euphemisms, she rejects such terms as interior housing centers, and sugar beet projects. The editors hold that if identity politics has no preordained political effects, then to a significant degree, the risks and dilemmas of identity politics signal not a failure of identity politics per se but a failure of states to democratize their political processes. They find this to be especially true of liberal democracies, where open political space for an engaged citizenry requires public institutions that possess the capacity/determination to develop procedures and guidelines for addressing claims in ways that are compatible with the rule of law, constitutional principles, and public reason. The period between the catastrophic end of the Mycenaean civilization and about 900 BCE is often called the Dark Age. It was a time about which Greeks of the Classical Age had confused and actually false notions. Thucydides, the great ancient historian of the 5th century BCE, wrote a sketch of Greek history from the Trojan War to his own day, in which he notoriously fails, in the appropriate chapter, to signal any kind of dramatic rupture. He does, however, speak of Greece settling down gradually and colonizing Italy, Sicily, and what is now western Turkey. It can be very fascinating to hear or read about the work, purpose, and tasks of non-incarnated beings. However, for most of us, such information is useful at best for entertainment. If we, respectively our soul, wanted to learn about the interrelations in the spiritual world, why then should we incarnate at all? Our soul could have stayed in the spiritual world. The interrelations of the spiritual world are certainly easier to grasp while you indeed are in the spiritual world. If you currently were in the rainforest with the goal to understand the system of the rainforest better, would you then for this purpose drive to the desert?
Whether India and the US are signing a new extradition treaty or amending the existing one is somewhat unclear, but there is no doubt that India's extradition requests have usually been turned down by Western democracies. For instance, when India requested the extradition of the JKLF leader, Amanullah Khan, who was visiting the US 4 years ago, a US law court turned down the Indian request. So did a judge in Belgium when Khan went to Belgium. The reason is that our extradition treaties with all Western nations forbid the extradition of a person on two grounds: I, if he is caused or convicted of an offense of a political nature, and 2, if he won't get a fair trial in the country requesting his extradition. Unfortunately for India, its human rights record is so dismal that Khan had no difficulty convincing a US and Belgian judge against his deportation on the ground that Indian law courts would be severely prejudiced against him. Past experience shows that US and European judges have been sympathetic to fugitives whose extradition India has sought. At a time when more soldiers are committing suicide than are dying in battle, it is well to remember that, no matter how thoroughly indoctrinated the belief in the superiority of an abstraction, there remains within each of us a powerful life force that can never be fully repressed. What Gandhi called satyagraha, a truth force, or soul force, remains deep within us as, perhaps, the greatest power at work upon each of us. The state, and the civilization it is helping to bring down, will continue to fight this life force in every conceivable manner, not simply in the war system, but in efforts to regulate even the most minuscule details of life's expressions.
Land reclamation has been carried out along the coast of Tokyo Bay since the Meiji period. Areas along the shore with a depth of less than 5 meters are simplest to carry out landfills, and sand from the floor of Tokyo Bay is used for these projects. The topography of the shoreline of Tokyo Bay differs greatly from that of the pre-modern period due to ongoing land reclamation projects. Tokyo Bay includes about 249 square kilometers of reclaimed land area in 2021. Aggregate household waste production is enormous in Greater Tokyo. There is little room for traditional garbage disposal sites. Waste is rigorously sorted at the household, much of it is turned into ash and further recycled into bay landfill. A conventional sales are when the home is owned outright or the seller owes less on the mortgage than fair market value. Conventional sales involve quicker transactions between both parties, unlike foreclosures, short sales and probate sales. We typically recommend conventional sales for our buyers, especially first-time homebuyers, to help them avoid the complications they could run into when dealing with distressed properties or probate sales. For a majority of buyers who are looking to purchase and move into their dream home as soon as possible, conventional sales are the way to go. Oftentimes, distressed properties can take many months for the seller's bank to approve an offer or for a court date to be set in the case of a probate sale. The Knowledge Challenge invites proposers to submit proposals for research activities aimed at improving our basic understanding of entrepreneurs and the levers, tools and methods that can advance entrepreneurship in the United States. The Knowledge Challenge is open to proposers conducting research in universities and academic institutions, laboratories, companies, nonprofit organizations and as individuals. Collaborations between academic researchers and entrepreneurs, entrepreneurship support programs and other entrepreneurial ecosystem builders are welcome. The Knowledge Challenge may grant up to $400,000 annually for project teams, up to $150,000 annually for individual researchers, including hiring contract or research assistants, and up to $30,000 annually for students or student teams or doctoral researchers. Understanding Migration was conceived in response to numerous requests from educators and curriculum specialists concerning the presentation and discussion of issues related to human migration in the social studies classroom. What are the reasons that large groups of people have found themselves moving from place to place? What effects does this movement have? And most importantly, how can such a fluid and nebulous concept be presented in a classroom in an easy-to-follow manner with clear lesson objectives and outcomes? Regional case studies were chosen to address these, and other, essential questions. Where possible, we have used primary source documents to present the information in each case study. Secure financial messaging services provider SWIFT said today that it has expanded the GPI tracker system to help banks track their global transactions at all times, keeping full vigil on the payments activity. Extension of its GPI tracker will cover all payment instructions sent across the network, SWIFT said in a statement. If you are employing a builder, the responsibility will usually be theirs, but you should confirm this at the very beginning. You should also bear in mind that if you are the owner of the building, it is ultimately you who may be served with an enforcement notice if the work does not comply with the regulations. Some kinds of building projects are exempt from the regulations, however, generally if you are planning to carry out building work, as defined in Regulation 3 of the Building Regulations, then it must comply with the building regulations.